Welcome to Which Side Do You Want, where we talk all things tennis. I'm your co-host, Ruffin Thornton, and I'll be joined by my good friend, James Skinner.
Unlike most tennis podcasts, we cover hot topics, from the lawns to the concrete, from the pros to the park, and all things in between. Welcome to Which Side Do You Want?
All right, tennis fans, welcome back to our podcast. It's been a minute. Been a while since we've been in front of you, but as we've always said in the past, when we've had these long breaks, we tend to have to deal with life. So life gets in the way. But for this podcast, we've got some special guests. Instead of the normal, we talk about tennis and talk about what's going on the pro ranks. We've got some special guests that are really on the forefront of tennis, not only in our local areas, but on the national scene. So Coach, it's been a second, but what have you been on?
It's been a while, but working with the team, and we're getting ready to head toward the end of the season, and we squeaked by and got into the regionals.
There you go.
Team. So hey, by hook or by crook, we're in. So.
And that crook happens to have a Monacan tennis shirt.
Yeah,
as coaching.
Hey, well, I just came off the courts about an hour ago.
Well,
beat the rain.
Beat the rain in and beat the opponents. That's all that matters, right? So, but again, this time we're not going to really get into what we normally do and cover with our tennis. We know that right now we're in the clay court swing, Masters 1000, leaving Spain and going to Italy. But now we're going to talk with some live people. Since these are your guests, James, I want you to go ahead and introduce our special guests.
Well, with pleasure, Ruffin.
Okay.
We are so honored to have two people who represent an organization in different ways, but this organization is one of the oldest sports organizations in the country, and I'm going to let them talk a little bit more about it. We have with us today, of course, we have Mr. Robert Foster. And Mr. Robert Foster is on the board, and he is soon to be the new president of the American Tennis Association. And we'd like to welcome Mr. Foster here to our podcast. And then the other guest we have here, of course, is no stranger to our podcast. Right. She has been with us before. This is Ms. Joylnn Johnson-Smith. And she also has a very direct connection, not only with the ATA, but with tennis. And we're going to allow her to speak also about her connection to the sport. And I'm just going to go ahead and turn it over to Mr. Foster. Welcome. We are so happy to have you with us and that you were able to take the time out your schedule. And folks, he is in Los Angeles, California, so he is on the other side of the country.
Right.
But we welcome you, and you're about to take the reins over with the ATA. And so we just want to give you a minute just to tell our audience, maybe those who are not familiar with the American Tennis Association, tell us about this organization, this venerable organization, and what its impact on tennis in the country.
Thanks, James. First of all, I want to thank you for the opportunity to come on and talk about not only the game we love, but historically how we fit into the game. The American Tennis Association, as some may know, but many may not know, that we are the oldest national African-American sports organization since 1916. And you'd be hard-pressed to find a national sports organization, irrespective of the sport, in this country. This organization was started in 1916, actually on Thanksgiving of 1916, where a group of tennis lovers got together at the YMCA on November 30th, 1916. It was interesting that at that time, Thanksgiving was celebrated on the 30th. Tennis had been around in our communities prior to that. In the 1890s, you had clubs all around the country that would have competition between clubs. And so, for example, in Baltimore, you had a club there, which is now known as the uh, Baltimore Tennis Club. Before that, all the guys got together, and this is co-ed, men and women adults.
Okay.
They got together from New York down to Richmond, all throughout the South. They would get together and they would compete. And so uh, the first president, Harry McCord, was one of the founders, and you'll hear Tally Holmes.
Tell
You'll
Holmes.
also hear Lucy Diggs Slow. Now, think these were all professionals. Lucy Diggs Slow was the first women's dean at Howard University, and she was one of the founders of the
AKA.
AKA sororities. So when you
Shout out to
so
AKA.
so yeah, and so when you figure also that Harry McCord, he was a medical doctor, and he was, one of the uh, uh, prestigious doctors in Baltimore at that time. So it's really
Mhm.
fascinating when you look at tennis. It was viewed as elitist, but when it was our elite or our talented tenth that really
Mhm.
founded the American Tennis Association, because they were the ones that had the financial wherewithal to financially support the tennis community. The first match was in Druid Hill Park. Those of our
Mhm.
friends who are in Baltimore, they'll know about Druid Hill Park,
Mhm.
and that was a segregated park. And the portion that we were allowed to play in is where we had our 100th celebration back in 2017.
Wow.
Tennis. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you have a question?
Oh, no, no, no.
No, keep right on. We're getting this history.
Okay. So when you figure the 20s, the 1920s, you had the race riots of 2019 all around the country that was spurred by the migration of blacks coming north, getting these jobs because there was a moratorium on allowing Irish and a lot of the Europeans, the Italians into the country that would take those jobs. We came up north, and so we became part of the industrial revolution in this country. And it was
Okay.
really great. And so tennis went right along with it.
Mhm.
Because of segregation, most of our, well, I won't say most, all of our tournaments, our national tournaments, had to be played on campuses of our HBCU schools. And we were not allowed to play with whites. It wasn't integrated. You figured tennis really didn't get integrated till about 1940. When you look at the Cosmopolitan Club in Harlem, where you had Jimmy McDaniels, who was at that time in 1940 considered to be the best African American player. Wilson Racket or Wilson Sporting Good Club, a company, they sponsored Don Budge, who at that time was the Grand Slam champion. He
Mhm.
played Jimmy at that time, so that was really the what I want to say. That's when we broke the color line. But
Wow.
all from the 1920s through the 1940s, we had segregated tennis. We used, as some people know, the Green Book. So
Hmm.
Victor Green's book that they had to use where we could stay and where we couldn't stay. No
Right.
matter if you were an entertainer, if you were anyone,
Yeah.
you had to do that. So when you look at the tennis, you have to look at it into the social construct and what was going on at the time. The whole Jim Crow. After
Right.
1877, that's really funny because in 1877, that's when Wimbledon, the first Wimbledon
Right.
championship was played, but that was also when Reconstruction ended and
Mhm.
Jim Crow began.
Okay.
But
Wow.
don't want to get off the
Right.
point on and get into some of our socialization stuff. But I will say that the ATA in the 1940s had 100 and around 148 clubs as members
Wow.
around the country.
Okay. So, so Robert, we really appreciate
Yeah, the background.
that background on the ATA and its history and how socially important it was to African Americans in this country, even if some of us don't even know the impact that it had. But Joylnn, so when we last had you on, you gave us an education on how important it was for your grandfather, Dr. Johnson, um, and how we know how Althea Gibson and Arthur Ashe from our fair city here in Richmond, how important Dr. Johnson was. But can you just briefly give us a backstory about the importance of Dr. Johnson in African American tennis?
Sure. And as Robert said earlier, thanks for including me in this podcast again.
Mhm.
I love to be able to share the story about how it happened for many people other than Ash and Althea.
Mhm.
But for 30 years, my grandfather ran a tennis boot camp out of his home in Lynchburg. He moved to Lynchburg in about 1933, bought a house on Pierce Street, and had a decent amount of space there that allowed him to build a tennis court. And his love of the sport was what got him engaged in running a camp because, of course, many of the African American players were phenomenal players that could not grace these country club courts and be able to compete in the tennis tournaments that were held across the country. So, in his mind, he decided he had his colleague, Dr. Hubert Eaton, out of Wilmington, North Carolina, and they both had tennis courts and did love the sport. And they were able to join forces and really helped integrate the sport of tennis for African Americans. So Althea 1957 and
Mhm.
58 was able to accomplish the things that she accomplished, winning the back then it was the US Nationals
Right.
and the equivalent of the US Open. And um and then she won Wimbledon and also I believe French. And again, for an African American man to be able to incorporate these types of success stories into the tennis world back at that time was almost unheard of.
Right.
And so I can relate. I've certainly played a lot of tennis at Druid Hill Park in Baltimore and up and down the East Coast. We would go to Jersey and Philadelphia. And these were some of the places that Dr. J would engage his resources of family members who were teachers and friends who were teachers or friends who loved the sport to help get these players to various tournaments up and down the East Coast and even as far away as Kalamazoo, Michigan and
Mhm.
Chattanooga, Tennessee. And the big coup, I think, was getting Ash to be able to play at the University of Virginia because there were many occasions where he would not be able to play, or
Right.
when Dr. J and his team came up to the various tournaments, they were told you were late. And they would default them basically from the matches. So I think it was because of a lot of perseverance and interest in the sport and knowing that he could make a difference was what one thing that really encouraged him to do what he did, and he did it in such a way that people had no choice but to allow him to be able to infiltrate this arena.
Right. So,
Yeah.
James, so you want to
Well,
go on questions?
well, before I just want to just to Joylnn, what's remarkable about what your grandfather did is that he was on the forefront of tennis and how tennis the whole system of having a camp or an academy almost. And now you
Hmm.
look at all of these programs that are doing the same thing he did, 70, 80 years ago. They are doing incorporating now. And, we that was remarkable that he was a visionary in that sense of training and bringing together all of these kids
Yeah.
from all over the country and having them train at his home. I want to ask you one question. I had a chance to go by and see the home on a recent trip up to in and I saw that they're doing some work. If you could tell us a little bit about the foundation, the Whirlwind Johnson Foundation, and what are some of the plans that you all have for the home, and also Robert, ask you, is there anything that is the ATA aware of what the situation with the Whirlwind Foundation, and is there any kind of will we ever be having you all come together at some level to also work with this foundation? Is that a part of of your mission?
Oh,
Well,
yeah. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Joylnn.
I was going to say back to your other question about Dr. J being a visionary. Of course, when he had these camps, the students at the camp had to conduct themselves a certain way. It was, I mean, as much as when you are out there coaching kids, you have to take control of what they do. And he
Hmm.
didn't stand over them. He went to his office every day and went to see patients at the hospital. So they knew up front what the expectations were, and they basically did what needed to be done. It was practice all day. It was maintaining the courts. And, he, if you didn't follow his protocol, you were out. So,
Right.
and that included family members. I had a brother who did not conduct himself a certain way. And as a result, that ended up in him having been sent back to DC. And so the foundation, to bring you up to speed with that, was founded in 2015. My
Hmm.
youngest brother, Lange, who passed away in 22, started the foundation with the help of some lawyer friends and other colleagues up in Washington. And the whole objective of the foundation is to maintain the legacy of Dr. J, whatever that will mean. It's maybe getting another tennis program out there. We've had some interesting conversations with the USTA Mid Atlantic since we last spoke. And just so you know, Robert is one of my board members. I met him in Orlando at a couple of years ago at one of the ATA national tournaments, and he has been gracious enough to be on our board. And some positions are going to be changing around a little bit, I hope, so that we can utilize him a little differently. But we are certainly open to ideas and including people and collaborating with people. I think that's the bigger thing. That's one of the bigger messages I got out about, learned about my grandfather, is that he collaborated with his friends and foes. So, even though you might not have had the same mindset, he was still going to collaborate with you nonetheless to get what he needed. And so, what's going on now with the foundation? We have a board of directors. Some of them are the great grandkids of Dr. J, who
Hmm.
are helping us do a lot of marketing things for the foundation, as well as just being able to support. We have a treasurer, vice president, and other board members. One woman from Lynchburg, one who used to be in Lynchburg but now is in Montana. And the other thing that I will mention is that we received a $100,000 grant from the National Trust back in 22, a little bit after Lange passed away. And we are now in the process of seeing the work being done on the house. So
Hmm.
um,
Awesome.
there have been some roadblocks along the way, but we are this week or next week. It's supposed to rain a lot this week. I was told that the roof will be in place
Okay.
this week. I don't really know that this week will make it happen, but they have started working on the frame of the house. And the grant was only for the exterior. So we
Okay.
are in constant fundraising mode, constant grant writing mode to get more money, because after we get the exterior completed, then we have to move to the inside. And I
Okay.
think the vision is to have a hopefully another tennis program there, but also be able to have that space so that the community can take advantage of certain aspects of it as well. We've got some green space. We just bought some land across the street from the tennis court. Not quite sure how we want to utilize that. And then two people recently made me aware of houses on Pierce Street that are for sale. So I need to kind of have some other conversations with them, because I'd love to just, like Dr. J, amass some property there
Sure.
and be able to really expand the program. Because one of the neighbors across the street is about to sell his home. So it's an exciting time. Yeah, I got a call today from the contractor asking me about the color of some gutters, and they send me pictures every day about the progress. I'll let Robert respond to the other question that you directed at him.
James, yeah, the ATA and the Whirlwind Foundation, we're joined at the hip. I'm
Okay.
on the board, and it's important to put this in perspective that Dr. Johnson's program that he had was known as the ATA Junior Development Program.
Okay.
Wow.
And
Wow.
what's more important, Dr. Johnson did most, if not all of this, out of his own pocket. And you figure that he basically led the ATA into integration, and when you look at the whites that helped, like Alice Marble, it was Dr. J that made that possible by with Thea, and what he did in terms of him and Dr. Eaton, and how they went in their pockets not only to develop her as a tennis player, but to get her educated down in Florida at, I think that was FAMU.
Yeah.
So you look at the ATA and ATA Junior Development. When you say that, you're really talking about Dr. Johnson and now Whirlwind. And so we are trying to do our part to get the word out that the Whirlwind Foundation, we all should support financially and any other way we can, because to be able to preserve this history where future generations can come through there and see the place where Arthur Ashe, Althea Gibson, and many others who came
Hmm.
through are
Oh yeah.
unsung players and who don't necessarily get the notoriety of Althea, or Arthur. They certainly were very valuable in promoting and growing the game we love in the country.
Yeah.
Okay. That again, that's valuable information that again a lot of us don't have the insight that you two will have. So we talked about the collaboration between the Whirlwind Johnson Foundation and the ATA. Um, but we also understand that we're under the bigger umbrella of the USTA. So I understand that the ATA is now uh, dealing with the USTA for their annual tennis tournament, correct? Down in Orlando.
Yes, yes, yes. When you, well, let me just lay out the land here.
Okay.
When you look at the USTA is the governing body of tennis, and that basically happened as a result of the Ted Stevens Act
Hmm.
in 1977 or 1978, and that was part of the whole Olympic thing. And
Right.
so the USTA is considered to be the governing body of tennis. The ATA, we partner with the
Hmm.
USTA on many events. And not only that, the USTA Foundation, which is a subsidiary of the USTA, and they have helped us financially. They will offer kids or the NJTL programs. There's like
Right.
maybe
Right.
270 programs around the country with the USTA Foundation, and they help send kids to our national. The USTA, we are for the last 4 years, I think, we've been holding our national tournament, our our annual American Tennis Association Nationals at the United States USTA campus in Orlando. And so they have been very gracious in helping us and giving us courts and things like that. And this is something that's very valuable. What the most important message is that we have not been taken over
Right. That's
by
good.
the USTA.
Yeah.
You'll hear these rumors, and that's not the
Right.
case. What we've done is that we are partnering with the USTA. We're now looking into reaching out to the Divine Nine. We are also working with
Okay.
Dr. Carl Goodman, who has the annual HBCU National Tennis Tournament every year. Last year was in South Fulton. We will be one of the sponsors of that again
Okay.
this year. We will also be giving out $6,000 in scholarships through contributions that were given. And so,
Very good.
so while we partner with Jack and Jill, we try and reach out to them as well. So we are not, as Joylnn said, we partner with people, and it's all for the benefit of the adults and, more importantly, the kids.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
And
Um,
let me add too, Skinner, the USTA was instrumental in restoring Dr. J's tennis court in 2017.
okay.
And we had the luxury of having Todd Martin from the International Tennis Hall of Fame come to Lynchburg, as well as Katrina Adams, who was the president or
Of the
chairwoman for the USTA. She had that position for 2 terms. So it was a very powerful time. Mary Carrillo also came and interviewed Lange, and they had a drone that came in, swooped in, and took pictures of the court before and the property, before and after. And so, I mean, it was a very emotional time. And one of the other things that we are hoping to do is really capture a lot of the historic oral history from individuals as well, because I will mention that there have been about 5 males that played on Dr. J's court that passed away since December. One was at the ATA tournament in 22, Orion Willis, who was from Portsmouth. He and I went to Fisk, and he went to Howard, graduate of Howard's Dental School. Weldon Rogers, who was from DC, attended Brown University. He played tennis, I think, for them as well. Also, Dana Nottingham, I don't know if you know him, from Hampton. Dana played in Lynchburg, but he was on Hampton's tennis team, Hampton architecture grad, and MIT grad in urban planning. And also another friend, Robert Cunningham, who was a Tufts grad and also Howard Medical School. So all of these guys, as you mentioned earlier, may not have, pursued tennis as their career choice, but there's something about tennis that really just kind of gets you to the point. I mean, you learn to be more competitive. I mean, I think that's the problem with me and some of my siblings, my remaining siblings. We're competitive. And it's but you also learn how to strategize things a little
Right.
differently, and think through things differently, but also you've developed these long-term friendships. I mean, I've known Ann Koger since I was a little girl. Bonnie Logan, I talk to Ann, frequently, and it's just amazing. These two women, first at first African Americans
Yep.
on the Virginia Slim circuit, but
Mm-hmm.
also they played in Lynchburg. They were on the men's tennis team at Morgan State. I mean, this history just cannot be forgotten. It
Right.
cannot be
Right.
forgotten. And these are just some things that, while, yeah, Dr. J was preaching tennis, he was also preaching get an education
Right.
and
Mm-hmm.
do something. If you couldn't get the education, he would help people get scholarships to school on tennis scholarships or maybe academic. But
Mm-hmm.
it helps, it has helped a lot of us in the long run. And I think I'm very fortunate to have had that experience. So,
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I just, Robert, just to kind of piggyback a little bit on what Joylnn was saying as far as the association of the ATA, we the path that you have had taken years ago has come up now in a point where you were an organization of necessity, let's so to speak, at one time, because if you did not exist, then African
You
Americans
may not have had the
would not have
same.
had a chance
Yeah.
to play the game at this level. Now we're at a period of time where a lot of people are looking at organizations that are quote unquote race based. I don't really like using that term, but I can't come up with a better one right now. But that have as its origins that it made a way for people of color or people who would not have had a way otherwise.
Yeah.
Now we have a mindset where such organizations really are they necessary. And what I would like for you to address is what would you say if somebody came to you in question and said, hey Robert, why do you even need to have an ATA? I mean, we got the USTA and they're not discriminating blacks. Why would we need to have another organization? How would you address that person?
Thanks, James. I did want to piggyback
Oh,
on what Joylnn had mentioned also to say that the ATA is a non-voting member of the International Tennis Hall of Fame.
Oh,
And
wow.
okay.
so they have embraced us as well. I would say the ATA is about culture.
Okay.
And so when you look at, even though we were denied, we never denied anyone to play in ATA tournaments from
mhm.
its origin.
Okay. Mhm.
So really it's a cultural question. Much like when you had Brown versus Board of Education in 1954, the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the Fair Housing Act of 1968 and on, just because you had an act doesn't mean you are able to change all the mindsets in the
Mhm.
country.
Okay.
The why we need them, I'd say, well, why would you need HBCUs now?
Mhm.
Uh,
Right.
it isn't a matter of race, it's a matter of culture,
Mhm.
it's a matter of legacy, it's a matter of making sure that people remember those who came before us and lift them up as champions, not just on the court, but in our communities. Some of people may be aware of uh, 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 Eugene Kinkle Jones. He's from Richmond.
Mhm.
So Eugene Kinkle Jones was the first executive director of the Urban League,
Mhm.
a social worker, and also was for 17 years the treasurer of the ATA,
Okay.
Eugene Kinkle Jones.
Mhm.
And he's just one. When you look at Marianne Seams in Chicago, they called her Mother Seams. The Midtack Tennis Association has a trophy called the Mother Seams Trophy. Marianne Seams in 1906 and her husband, they started playing tennis and they migrated from the South to Chicago and they built the tennis court there in Chicago, Chicago Prairie Tennis Club can thank her and her husband because they were able to afford to do that. And so to say that, why do you need the ATA? Why do you need Howard? Why do you need
Mhm.
Tuskegee? You need these institutions for the legacy so that people will never forget. I know our Jewish friends, they have the Holocaust Museum
Right.
because how important it is for people to remember.
Mm-hmm.
And so, as you see, I get a little passionate about it
Yes.
because it isn't about color, it's about legacy and it's about culture.
Excellent.
You
Right.
cannot experience the culture we have at our tournaments anywhere else.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, Robert, based on that, I have a specific question.
Yeah,
Since you're going to be the incoming ATA director pretty soon, um,
right.
I'm assuming you've dealt with the USTA. So, my question to you is this: how does the USTA and the ATA support diversity and inclusion within the tennis community from what you've seen?
The USTA, they have a diversity inclusion department. We work with them. Um, Marissa Grimes is, I believe, I don't know the title, but she's like the chief diversity
Mhm.
officer there.
Mm-hmm.
Marissa is very helpful. Sean Slocum Jones, who is also a director there in the diversity lane, they're out in the community. They call us, they come to all our events, they financially support some of our events.
Mhm.
And so, not only that, we are members of the United Tennis Industry, which
Okay.
the USTA is involved in that. So we have a seat at the table. And that's the one thing about you may not be able to vote like we're non-voting member at the International Hall of Fame, but you have to have a seat at the table to know
Right.
what's being discussed in the room.
Right. And that's
And
always
so
important.
Yeah.
this is where we're at now. When you look at you talk about diversity, what's really important in terms of what I feel is so critical going forward is visibility and credibility.
Right.
We, as the ATA, we have to fight to increase our visibility, the awareness, and our
Mm-hmm.
credibility in our own community.
Right.
I mean, the USTA published a report. Right now, there's about 2.3 million those who claim to be African Americans playing tennis out of the 23 or 24 million players in the United States.
Mm.
We got
Okay.
46 million blacks in that claim to be African American in this country. So about 5% are playing tennis. We have to do a better job as an organization getting out there. Now,
Mm-hmm.
hear this. We're 100% volunteer and have been for over 100 years. I don't
Right.
know any organization, African American, that's 100% volunteer when ain't nobody getting paid.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So that is a passion of love and trying to preserve something. I'm retired now, but it's about like Paul being on the road to Damascus. You get struck by lightning, you
Like
run
that.
right like Joylnn. You say, "Okay, I'm
Right.
in."
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
And so this diversity thing is kind of a good thing, but on the other hand, is we have to say we have to be self-sustaining, and we have to reach out to our own community to make sure they're visible and give them a reason to support us.
Mm-hmm.
That's the key. Credibility is all about trust and belief in what you're doing. Does that kind of answer it?
Oh yeah, yeah, it definitely does. And again, we're using this platform, and hopefully, you'll take advantage of the platform that we do have to put your message out there.
Yeah.
Both of you, actually.
Exactly.
So, James, you got any more questions?
Yeah, that's just to jump off of what you just said, Ruffin. I think it's vital that, and that's why we're so happy that both of you all are here. That we become aware that you all exist and that you're there and that you serve. And just like you were saying, Robert, you don't serve just the Black community. We serve the community in general, but
Right.
the origins of this sport. We always, grew up. All of us, we grew up playing tennis early on when people said that was a white sport, and I
Right.
always
Yep.
cringe when I hear that
Right.
because
Yeah, because it's not.
you are you are evident of the fact that we've been playing tennis pretty much since tennis was created.
Began.
The age of, and
Certainly in the United
have
States.
always been a part of the game, and so our growth. I don't. When we say things like that, to me, it always seems like we're limiting ourselves, and they're
Right.
saying that we're not
Oh,
shouldn't have access to these things. And I'm just so happy that you all are here to tell everyone that yes, we do play, and
Right.
I hope you get a chance to talk about the ATA Nationals also a little bit about what that's all about, and as a person who witnessed it the first time as a 16-year-old back in the 70s, it was an amazing event for me. And like I told you before, it was, it was world altering for
Right.
me. And if you could just talk about that just a little bit about your premier program, the Nationals.
Okay, I wanted to digress just a bit because you
Yes.
talked about the color thing, and it wasn't a thing we should be in back in the day, and now the thing is that and you guys know in HBCU teams we have whites playing on those
Right.
teams, and I get
Mhm.
I get arguments from my brothers and sister.
Mhm.
Why how where are the blacks? And I want to say, guys, how are you supporting kids in
Right.
your community to
Right.
develop
Exactly.
them so they'll have the skill sets, so they'll
Mhm.
have the competencies to get those scholarships and the funding and the ability to play?
Exactly.
And so oftentimes we like to kick each other uh, uh, while we're pulling up the ladder.
Right.
So I just want to say I don't think that's really fair. One, to our HBCUs, to our
Right.
black coaches, to our coaching kids, because tennis is a meritocracy as opposed to our
Mhm.
fraternities and our
Mhm.
sororities.
Right.
Mhm.
But tennis is a meritocracy. So if you're promoting the meritocracy of sports, you have to be inclusive.
Yes.
Right.
But that doesn't mean we don't uplift our legacy and our history, and we continue to grow the sport and help those in underserved communities. You guys
Mhm.
know, and a lot of us know, well, you look in our black communities in these high schools, a lot of them don't even have tennis programs
Yes.
Right.
because they're
True.
not getting the tax revenues there to promote it, to help those.
Exactly.
And if you don't have that, then how's a family going to be able to afford to go pay for their kid to get individual lessons and take them to national
Right.
tennis tournaments?
Mhm.
So
Right.
anyway,
Which
go ahead.
is why Robert and I have been dealing with the USTA Mid Atlantic.
Hmm.
Lynchburg does not have a public tennis program,
Wow.
and I had the opportunity to speak at their be videotaped, I should say, for their centennial celebration of what the Mid Atlantic USTA has done, in the past 100 years to be inclusive, and as a result of that conversation and being included on some emails, I took it a step further to reach out to some of the people that I interacted with in that endeavor to say, hey, let's get a program in Lynchburg, because
Mhm.
this was the hot seat for the integration of the sport. And there is no, I mean, they got country clubs and they have tennis programs, and they have other people that do you know programs for adults and things like that, but a lot of these are paid programs. What
Mhm.
about the inner city kids that don't have there's no NJTL there? And
Right.
another thing that brought up the thing about the inclusiveness of the ATA. Whenever I played as a child up until adulthood, there were many white players that would come and play in these tournaments. Southeastern in Richmond, Mall
Mhm.
Club in DC, the Philadelphia, New Jersey, Baltimore, all of those organizations. And there were a couple of non-African Americans that played at my grandfather's camp, young lady from Los Angeles, Tam O'Shaughnessy.
Mhm.
And Tam was kind enough to donate $100,000 to our foundation. She didn't have to do it, but what she
Right.
told my brother was that Dr. J was very kind to her. She was
Mhm.
the only white girl. Then there was Tina
Mhm.
Watanabe, who is a Japanese American from Los Angeles. And I was down there the summer that both of those girls were on the court.
Mhm.
And it just kind of really struck me that she would think enough of us to make that donation. And that's what's helping keep this work going as we speak on the house,
Hmm.
because the half of the grant is dead. The other half we won't get until the we finish the whatever work we can get done with the funds that we have actually that are coming from Tam's donation. But the point I wanted to make is that there was an inclusiveness. And she said he didn't care that I was a white girl. He did not care. He included her, treated her like he would have treated one of his granddaughters.
Right.
And so it's so interesting that we blacks, African Americans, people of color have always been inclusive. And yet we've had to struggle and we will continue to struggle because we can't let our guard down. We can't think that because we've made one or two milestones with the USTA that it's going to be something that carries on forever. We have got to continue the struggle, the fight, and to keep things out there, but definitely by us being much more, I would say, just to have that collaboration and have that relationship and to just ask for what we want. We need
Yeah.
to put it
Yeah.
out there.
Yeah.
I want a program in Lynchburg, and I'm going to get one.
Yeah.
That's my
the way
hope.
you get it. That's the way you get it. By
Right.
being the squeaky wheel that's asking for what
Yeah.
you want.
And I mean, I've reached out to the colleges and universities there. I've reached out to these other tennis programs there. And I keep forgetting I need to reach out to Park and Recs. But again, there are opportunities and we need to just take the bull, the bull by the horns and make it happen.
Right.
Yeah. 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 Well, I'm wanted also real quick to talk. You talked earlier about the connection with the HBCUs and that prior, until recently, your nationals were always played at HBCUs campuses. Is that connection? Is there still a connection with HBCUs in any way, shape, or
Oh
form?
yeah, yeah. Yes, we reach out to the HBCUs. Matter of fact, one of the um, persons on our board is a former Howard tennis coach, Brianna Addison,
Mhm.
and so and then Brianna played on the WTA tour for a while as well. Uh, when we, like I say, we help sponsor the National HBCU Tennis Championship. So last year was our first year.
Yeah.
We plan to do it again this year. The challenges we have with the HBCUs now, we've been holding our national at the USTA national campus because there are 40 courts. You have 20
Mhm.
clay courts and 20 hard courts where the parents who are playing can be right there with the kids.
Mhm.
Not only that, we are a level 5 sanction for the juniors. We have an NTRP and we have a non-sanction, and we also have about 30 kids that come from the Caribbean, Puerto Rico, Venezuela. So our brown brothers in the Caribbean, they're very involved and on our board. So it is important for us to take the next step forward because when we talk about our Black community, we have to be honest, have an honest discussion. There's about 4 communities in there because you
Mhm.
have our affluent. Oprah Winfrey is not really in the same community as the brothers deep in the hood.
Right.
Mhm.
And you figure our Boulay brothers, our Sigma Pi Phi brothers, they're in a different community.
Right.
Our middle class brothers, you'll go to the park and and the brother who is struggling will look at you like, well, we ain't really in the same hood.
Good. Right.
And so we
Absolutely.
as a Black community have to get out of colorism, have to get out of our internal elitism and
Mhm.
try and improve where we can and identify where the weaknesses are financially and socially and help out. And that's really the key in our community.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. I think also too the fact that you're expanding when you expand the pool, you expand the ability of people to play it, and you grow the sport as well.
Right.
It's to exclude people, then you hurt the opportunities for finding that broader stream of talent. that's out there. And I think that's a lot of, unfortunately, because it's still considered an elitist sport in this country, we exclude so many other people who would
Yeah.
enjoy the sport and who could advance in it, you know.
But
That is
the
true.
other thing, I do understand the pain that is felt in our community. For so long, people fought for integration, but at the same time, we know that getting that C-suite, that may not be for everybody, and we have a pain in our community
Mm-hmm.
that sometimes we just want to strike out to say, "Hey, you ain't black enough."
Right. Right.
Yeah, yeah. We experience it as tennis players all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
But
We do.
I grew up very poor, single parent
Mhm.
mom.
Mhm.
So I know about code switching, so I know all
Right.
about that. So I
Right.
understand it, and so I
Mhm.
understand the struggle we have. But the thing is, don't strike out at a HBCUs that all of a sudden got the white boys and the white girls on the team.
Right.
Right.
Try and see what can we do to get more kids of color,
Mhm.
our Latinx kids. We
Mhm.
have to reach out to them. We can't say y'all ain't with us. We
Right.
can't play that game.
Right.
Right.
And those in the ATA, we are moving forward to be inclusive, yet and still keep the legacy in our history and explain this is what we're about. We want you to be part of us.
Wow.
Right.
Well
Yeah.
said. Well
Well
said.
said.
And I hope
Definitely.
I didn't get too deep on that.
No, 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 not at all. Not at all.
No.
I'm going to go a little off script here. I got a question for you, Robert. So in the background, from what we can see, you have a couple of famous pictures in your background. So I have
Yeah.
one. I got my eye on just directly to the left of your feed. Who is that player? Can you tell us how that picture got
Let's see.
in behind you?
Let's see. The
She's
lady.
wearing a white cap. Yep, there you
Yeah.
go.
That's Serena.
Serena. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can tell. Look at
Yeah,
that.
So
I'm a big Serena Williams fan. Well, that
Yeah.
whole Mr. Williams, Venus.
right.
Yeah.
It's funny. My roommate from college was their attorney, and
Okay.
so I got from the periphery. I got to kind of keep up with what was going on with them
Yeah.
when they were out here in Compton and how they developed. So yeah, I'm a big fan of theirs.
Mhm.
Okay.
Well, you're at home here, man.
Yeah, definitely.
We are big
Definitely.
Serena fans here as well. You are at
Yeah.
home.
And
And then,
absolutely.
up there at the top is Muhammad Ali.
Holly.
Right.
He was an inspiration to my
Mhm.
generation growing up
Yeah.
because he was the only one that seemed like he said, "Money doesn't matter. I have principles that I'm standing
There
up
you
That's
for."
go.
right. That's right.
And
And we should all follow that.
for a black man to do that in the
Right.
'60s, that was
Exactly.
powerful.
That was really
Yes.
powerful.
Yes.
We forget the impact that Muhammad Ali had on just what it was like to be an African American and stand behind your principles,
Principle. Yeah.
considering
Yeah,
financially how it affected him. But
Yeah.
that's another
yeah.
story
Now
altogether.
think
Yeah.
about this: the Green Book, ATA, Dr. Johnson, Dr. Eaton. They not only their money, they risked their lives
Right.
traveling.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Wait a minute,
Yeah.
Lynchburg, Wilmington.
Right.
That's not Harlem.
No.
No, that's not. You're right.
That's true. That's
And they
true.
would go
Absolutely.
all through the South taking these kids to
Mhm.
develop them.
Yeah.
Has anyone ever given him praise for the risk he took?
No.
Right. Yeah.
Not at
Hey,
all.
there's a story about an axe in the door at some hotel or motel where they stayed. And I thought about that because how do you explain to somebody's parent that your
Right.
kids are safe with me, but
Yeah.
there's an axe in somebody put an axe in the door and said, "Go home."
Wow.
Right.
Yeah, that's there were many stories. My brother Bobby can share a lot more of those,
Mhm.
but I mean, some of the things that we experienced up north were probably more superficial, but still on that order of, you're not wanted here at the
Mhm.
country club. So
Right.
just kind of
Was
interesting.
And see, that lets you know why it was so important when he was working with the kids that he
Right.
told them about their attitude and behavior and your language. You had to
Yes,
carry
Absolutely.
yeah.
yourself
You had to carry
way
yourself
above
up.
because literally it could save your life.
Right.
You don't want to give them a reason. And also it made them stronger players too. I mean, that mental toughness it would take. But you know, that they went through, that those kids went through some things in that, in their
Oh
travels through the
yeah,
South and
Oh
playing
yeah.
those
yeah.
tournaments, and it
Well,
built.
Skinner, some other examples. When Juan Farrell played and my
Mm,
grandfather took him around, and he's one of those lost people that
mhm.
should have been the
Yeah,
next Arthur Ashe,
yeah.
but nobody came to the rescue when Dr. J died to pick up the ball and,
Mhm,
say, we're gonna help this guy continue that success.
yeah.
um he would take him to tournaments, and Juan was a lot taller than most, plus he looked a little older than most,
Mhm,
and he and my brother would play doubles in some of those tournaments, but we were shorter, and Bobby was even much shorter than Juan. My grandfather had to carry his birth certificate around in his briefcase
Yeah.
because they would question what he can't be that's not how
Right.
old he
right.
is. And he'd
Mhm,
have to pull out a birth certificate.
wow.
So just ironic things like that that just kind of he was tall. I mean, he had
Yeah.
tall genes in his family. What can
Mhm,
we say?
yeah.
But the thing is, those are things that were designed to hamper. Yeah, he can't play in 12 and under. He can't play in
Mhm,
14s, but he
mhm,
beat John McEnroe a couple of times,
mhm. Yeah,
and
yeah.
John McEnroe never talks about it. So mighty interesting.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
But guys, we're all about inclusive and always have been.
right.
As a
Hmm.
community, the NAACP. When you think of Mary White Overton, and
Yeah.
you look at the whites who were Du Bois that started that, you
Mhm,
look at half of these HBCUs. Who you think
mhm.
started
Yeah,
them? And
that's true.
so, and when in tennis, you look at Alice Marble,
Yeah.
who fought for Thea Gibson to be
Mhm.
able to play
Right.
Yeah.
tennis integratedly,
Mhm, mhm,
professionally. I mean,
mhm,
not profession, but integratedly. So
mhm,
I just want our people to know we partner with anyone who could help us, but Lord knows we would love for our community to get more involved and to dig in their pockets so that we can continue this organization and help our kids get into and to have more of a cultural festival experience where we could hold different events around the country. Remember, we're
right.
100% volunteer.
Right.
Right.
Money don't grow on trees.
No,
Yeah.
it
We
does
ain't
not.
all like Dr. Johnson.
That's right.
Now, wait, no. Let me just clarify. Let me clarify. He was not a rich. He was not a rich man. He was not a rich man, but I think he knew how to use his resources. He
Right.
Yeah.
had an account with Wilson Sporting Goods,
Mhm,
a lifelong account that my dad took over when he passed away. He didn't. He was not rich. He wasn't a Mercedes Benz driving doctor. Okay, he did house calls, Oldsmobile, Opel Cadet. That was his thing. And again, I think the values that he taught us were more worth more than any money in a bank account.
Oh
I
yeah.
yeah.
mean, he
Yeah.
was he was he was smart. Now he invested in property, and he helped people that couldn't buy houses. He would buy houses at auctions and
Mhm,
give let them buy them and pay for them as best they could pay for them.
Right.
But
mhm,
the thing, that's so interesting is that people, you get the wrong perception. And he was not a rich guy at all. I
mhm.
mean, we loved him dearly, but
Yeah.
and he gave us whatever he wanted to give us for sure. But
Mhm.
again, it wasn't like this. There was an ever ending bank account that we could just
Right.
go.
No, no, no.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
Yeah.
need so and
We
so.
we definitely don't want to
Yeah.
put that out
Yeah.
there and say
Not
that
the case. Not the
that
case.
because we're tennis
But
Yeah.
players we have
yeah.
this unlimited source of funds. We
No.
do not.
No. Well.
And the other thing that I think is so interesting is that how the circle of people that we were exposed to and that were exposed to us, that we can still have relationships with
Right.
many of
Mhm,
them. That's the
mhm,
thing that just kind of gets me, because Tam, I had called her a few times. She was having some health issues, she said, and so, but she called me up the other day and just wanted to know how's progress coming. And
mhm,
I was able
mhm.
to talk to her, share pictures. And she got excited, and I think she may be a little bit more, able to help us, because I certainly feel like we need to tap into that ATA, not ATA, the USTA
Hmm.
donor list of
Hmm.
sorts, and
Sure.
just try to do some fundraising in that regard.
Yeah.
So I'm
Yeah.
excited. I mean, again, Robert and I, we've gotten involved in the Black Tennis Hall of Fame thing, which will be here in Richmond in
Mhm.
September. Again, the USTA Mid Atlantic. I think there are so many people. I mean, I had a guy reach out to me a week or so ago. I was up walking with my husband, and he started asking me about Dr. J being from Plymouth, North Carolina, and that he had been to his gravesite, and he wanted to know about him, and he's now talking about maybe planning something for 2025.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's where Dr. J's family was raised, prior to him coming to Lynchburg. So it's really interesting because his father was a business person down there. He gambled a lot, gambled and lost a lot of land and stuff. But again, there's some story about these Johnsons down in
Hmm.
this little one stoplight town.
Wow.
So I just think it's the impact on lots of people. And I spoke at his church for Black History Month, which was a very interesting scenario. Met a woman who told me she was pregnant, and this is after Dr. J was able to integrate the Lynchburg hospitals. And she said to me that the doctors, this is 1965, she said the doctors at the hospital asked her, well, who do you want to deliver your baby? The white doctors or your doctor? And she said, Dr. Johnson.
Hmm.
And it just really, struck a chord for me, because I'm like, how profound. And then I went to talk to her further, and she, was telling me how old the child was, 50 something now. But I just thought that was such a touching story,
Yeah.
that people are still there that
There.
remember
Wow.
all that he did for
Yeah.
them,
Wow. Wow.
tennis or not non-tennis.
I understand. Yeah. I think
Yeah.
Joylnn, there's a movie to be made
Yes.
about
The
that
Well,
whole,
whole
it's so
thing.
yeah,
funny.
just amazing story. And
There's a guy doing a documentary that we met at the US Open in 2019, and I just talked to him the other day. The USTA was when Katrina was still president.
mhm.
She was, kind of forging ahead, with that. But see, every time the leadership changes, we end up having to again start the narrative again. It's
Mhm. Yeah.
now you got to get to the current president. Is he a
Right.
person that feels like this is something that should happen? So there are a couple of angles, because I've had somebody else reach out to me about a play, and then Ken Bell, who lives in Florida, is doing this. He's trying to finish this documentary about Dr. J. So, I mean, I think once we get the house together, I just think things are going to be popping off quite a bit more significantly.
Well, we are behind you on this one 100%, Jolynn, hoping this thing moves in the direction it should, because I think it would serve not just the tennis community, it would serve us all
Oh
to see
yeah.
that story, and to see uh, also how it's manifesting so many other people. I mean, what he was able to accomplish, it has worked to
Yeah.
help so many, and
Hmm.
an inspiration. Robert, one last thing I would like to just ask you, since you're about to take the reins, take the helm of the ATA, and you'll be essentially taking it into the future. What is your vision about where you would like to see the AT? You've touched on a lot of things about the inclusivity, and I think that is incredible. I just love that. But is there anything else you would like to see as far as the future of the organization? Where would you like to see it going in?
I'd like to have our digital platform best in class, so that we will be a platform that can disseminate information, valuable information, to links to organizations such as yourself, media organizations, so that we, in a sense, in a small sense, can be a place where people can come to our digital platform to get direction and information. My vision is to increase our membership,
Hmm.
to have that as a revenue stream, not as something that people only join to pay when they come to play nationals. I want our membership to be not just tennis players, but all those who want to support the legacy of the ATA, growing tennis in our community, and being able to give grants and scholarships to Black and Brown tournament players.
Mhm.
That's my vision, and I also know that, in my work life we used to use Six Sigma
Hmm.
programs to for process improvements, and so maybe employ voice of the customer or our membership to see what it is that we're not touching on. Maybe we need to include pickleball as part of our platform going
Joylnn
forward.
shaking her head.
She said no, but
Yeah,
yeah, we
because there are now about 9 million pickleballers.
right.
And so I have a lot of people saying, yeah, I play pickleball. Well, maybe we can have a few courts for you there, because what my vision is our organization to be a cultural family reunion where people
Yeah.
come not just for the tennis, to get the Divine Nine involved with us.
Mhm.
Maybe we get the frats and sororities to have something to
Mhm.
where it culminates, to have a HBCU or just a coaching conference that
Mhm.
comes in line
Yes.
with our nationals. But look for ways where we can be more viable, more visible, and increase our credibility within the Black and Brown community. I love our people. I'm very thankful for the USTA and how they're helping us, the foundation. But we have to look inwardly to grow,
Mhm.
and that's how I believe it. You can't have everybody going to the same trough every month.
Right.
That's right. There you go.
Absolutely. Right.
Yeah, well said. Well
And
said.
I hope that kind of succinctly kind of put my vision
Yes,
out there.
I
Oh
think it
yeah,
did.
that
I
yeah,
think it did.
and hopefully this platform will help you put your vision out there.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Robert.
And you don't forget, if you guys are not members of the ATAs, I'm like Amway. I'm gonna be calling on you to put
Oh,
That's
$30
right.
okay.
in annually.
That's right.
That's fine.
I did my 2 year. Renewed my 2 year
That's
membership.
what I'm
So
talking, James.
yep.
They say if we all would just reach out to 5 people,
Yeah.
but
Right.
we
Yeah.
have to be visible enough, and we have to have our message. We have to define our message a
Right.
little bit more.
Right.
And
Yes.
so you'll see me, and it's not just me, it's our board, to be
Mhm.
collaborative with our board members to come out with our message. I don't want people to think that it's Robert's vision. No, it's
Right.
our board, because
Boards.
remember, we're volunteering and
Right.
we don't want to burn people out. So we
Yeah.
want everybody on our board to have a voice and for it to be collaborative.
Mhm.
Okay.
Because remember, ain't nobody getting paid.
That's
Right.
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 Yeah.
Well,
Labor, truly a labor of love.
right.
Yeah,
And you still want to maintain that seat at the table, like you so eloquently said. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, we definitely got to put that
And we
out.
want to tell
oh yeah.
everybody.
I mean, Dan Faber, who was with the USTA Foundation, he is now CEO at the International Tennis Hall of Fame.
Hmm.
Dan is an ally of us. We can call on Dan there, and that's what I mean about having a seat at the table. There are folks that are beating me up whenever I see them. How come the founders of the ATA are not at the international? Well, that you have it's a political process where
Right.
you
Right.
have to
Sure.
constantly try and convince people and bring people into that vision. It isn't
Mhm.
about demanding at that point.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, and that's an interesting point because with Althea and Ash having won their respective places in the Grand Slam arena, Dr. J was not inducted until
Yeah.
2009.
Right.
He was nominated in '07, and what really helped us push this was Lange and Julian. Lange actually was mistakenly copied on an email to the whole International Tennis Hall of Fame body. The board members, the players, and a whole bunch of folks. And what people don't realize is that as a result, he took that opportunity to go ahead and reach out and say, "Hey, this this has happened a long time ago. 2007, you nominated him. Now it's time to make this
Make
happen."
this
Right.
happen.
And again, had to do it in a politically correct way. But at the end of the day, this is you can't go at it in a rogue manner. But thank goodness, he got his day with the Hall of Fame
Yeah.
and an exhibit there, and it was just so overwhelming to
I bet it was.
experience that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So, and I encourage you all, go there. It's a great weekend, and though it was July. It was July the 10th of 2009. It was so cool up there. You're on the water. It was
Right.
absolutely
Word Island.
gorgeous.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, that's my plug for ITHOF.
Well, so we're going to give you both. We're going to wrap things up, but we're going to give both of you a chance to plug your organization. So, Joylnn, can we start with you? Can you just remind us the Whirlwind Johnson Foundation? Where can we send donations, as well as for
Sure.
Robert? Can you do the same thing about the ATA?
So it's whirlwindjohnson.org, um, www.whirlwind, like the funnel, whirlwindjohnson.org. There's tons of information on the website about Dr. J, about the organization, about the board, and what we have done and are doing. And I would just encourage people, no gift is too small. My son and my two nieces are doing some marketing things where they've taken Women's Month to put a blurb out about Althea and Dr. J. And
Awesome.
then Dr. J's 125th birthday was April the 16th. And they put a blurb out there to give 125. But if you can't do 125, we'll take 25. I mean, it's just creating an awareness of what happened, when it happened, how it happened, and the person that, and I'm not going to say it was all him. It's a combination of him, his colleagues, and family and other people that made these things happen for people like Ash and Althea. And he had resources and he took advantage. So please visit our website and make a generous donation if you can, but we'll take a smaller donation too.
All right.
Right. Okay. And Robert?
Yeah, you can become a member or make a donation at yourata.org, and we would appreciate that. And if you have a skill set, uh, it's a digital platform, writing, bookkeeping, accounting. We can use those type of members, even if you don't play tennis. We need your help. As I said, we're a volunteer organization, and so we really need to have competency, and that is oftentimes you'll have people who don't have the competencies we need, and they'll get involved, and sometimes it's taking a step back instead of a step forward. But if you give to us financially, that'll help us continue the legacy of this historic organization.
Awesome. And
Yeah.
I'm just going to add, please look at both of the websites. The websites are great and very informative, and great video on the ATA website. I think
Hmm.
that's a new video that y'all put up, but it's really nice and effective, and a lot of good information on the Whirlwind Foundation website as well, Joylnn, about who your grandfather was and the legacy. And
Right.
we appreciate that and support that.
Oh, and they can reach me at rfoster@yourata.org.
All right,
Okay,
great.
and we'll remember to put that
Yes.
information out on this podcast, so that we have short attention spans, but when we can see it in print, we can
Yeah.
always see that. So we'll make sure that
Amen.
that's visible.
Amen.
And
But
our info is out on the website as
Yes.
well.
Yes.
and
Great.
thank you so much for
Thanks.
the
Thank you.
opportunity to
Thank
come
you.
on
Well, thank you for
and
having.
talk about both these organizations. They're tied at the hip.
Yes.
Yes.
Without Dr. Johnson, there wouldn't have been Arthur Ashe, or Althea Gibson. And
Mhm.
while the ATA took a lot of credit, it was behind the scenes. It was Dr. Johnson and
Right.
Dr.
Yeah.
Eaton.
Oh yeah. Without a doubt. Without a doubt.
Right.
We want to thank you all so much, Robert and Joylnn, for sharing your time with us. I think this is just a great website for us to get started for
Right.
New
Get
Year's
back for
season.
right before we get
And
into the swing of our tennis
yes,
campaign. So we're about to get ready with all the warm temperatures and
yeah,
warm weather, and starting out with the French, and usually with Wimbledon, a lot of people start to bring their rackets out, or now pickleball rackets out, and start playing the sport. So
yeah,
we appreciate having you both on.
yeah,
Um,
Sure.
and hopefully we can reach a lot more people and get the word out.
yeah,
So
yeah.
thanks again.
And we
And
want
and if
to.
I
Go
was
ahead,
going to
Luana.
say too, Skinner, if you need some commentary, I was focused on Felix Auger Aliassime's match yesterday. Uh,
And
poor
we
thing,
yeah,
but
well,
Right.
he made a finals.
Right.
he
He
did.
got there. He hadn't
Both
been
of
there in a
them were
while.
not well
Yeah,
but they
Right.
played like they were.
that's
Right.
true.
So, but yeah, we can regroup and have our
Yeah.
little conversation about the
Oh yeah,
players.
we're gonna do that, and Robert, we're gonna have you back on. We want you to come and talk. We didn't get a chance to go into the ATA Nationals, the
Right.
big party that you all have,
Yeah.
and we hope that maybe one day we'll be there. We'd like to
And
come there one summer and
All right.
bring the
Well, why
webs.
don't we plan on just plan on next summer? Come
All
on
right,
next
down. You can
summer.
do the podcast, get
yes,
some folks there on the ground,
that would be
and just
awesome.
spend a day or two, down
Well,
with your peeps.
hey Rob, we gonna bring our sticks too,
Right.
Robert.
Yeah.
We want to come
Yeah,
out there and play.
that's good. Because remember, guys, we want this to be a family reunion, not
Right,
just
Right.
a tournament.
right,
There you go.
exactly.
Yeah. But hey, I'm just gonna say we spending this family reunion on the clay course, not the hard courts.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's perfect.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
I'm telling you.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Thanks very
Thank
much
you so
again.
much. Once again, we appreciate having Robert Foster with the ATA and Joylnn Johnson-Smith with the Robert Whirlwind Johnson Foundation. Thank you so much. Much success to both of you with your organizations in the future. And we stand behind you to support you 110%.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.